I am sorry, I do not remember you. The words fell between them like a blade. In the small cottage sitting room, every breath seemed to stop. The man standing before her, tall, immaculately dressed in dark riding clothes, still dusted with winter road, looked as though the ground itself had betrayed him. His hand, which had been reaching toward her, slowly fell back to his side. "Lavinia," he whispered. But the young woman only stared at him with calm, confused eyes. To her he was a stranger, and yet the villagers had just addressed him with fearful respect. "Your Grace." The Duke of Somerville, the man who claimed to be her husband, Lavinia, if that truly was her name, felt Mary's hand tighten gently around her wrist. "My dear," Mary murmured softly beside her, "this gentleman has been searching for you for days." Days. The Duke's gaze never left her face. He looked at her as if she were something returned from the grave. "You are alive," he said hoarsely. She did not know how to answer that, because while her body lived, her past was gone. Everything before the accident was nothing but darkness. "I am sorry," she repeated quietly, "but I truly do not know you." The Duke closed his eyes briefly as though steadying himself against an unseen blow. When he opened them again, the fierce command expected of a man of his rank was gone. In its place was something far more unsettling. Regret. "My name," he said slowly, "is Daniel Crewe, Duke of Somerville." His voice was calm, controlled, the voice of a man accustomed to parliament halls and noble assemblies. But beneath that restraint lay something frayed. "You are my wife." The room remained silent except for the low crackle of the fire. Lavinia studied him carefully. A duke, her husband. Yet when she searched her mind, there was nothing. No wedding, no house, no shared life. Only the strange weight of a ring upon her finger. "I believe you," she said carefully. And she did. Something in his voice made deceit impossible. But belief was not the same as memory. "I simply do not remember." Daniel Crewe swallowed. Behind him stood a broad-shouldered man in travel-stained clothes, clearly a loyal servant. "Burton," the Duke said quietly without turning. "Yes, Your Grace." "She lives?" The servant's shoulders relaxed, as if a great burden had lifted. "Thank God." But Daniel did not look relieved. He looked haunted. Mary gestured gently toward a chair. "Your Grace, please sit. The lady is still recovering." "I must see her properly," Daniel replied. "You are seeing her," Lavinia said softly. His eyes returned to her. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Finally she asked the question that had been pressing against her chest since Mary first uttered the word husband. "Was I happy?" The Duke froze. A faint wind rattled the cottage window. Mary looked down. Burton shifted uneasily, and Daniel Crewe, feared across London society for his cold composure, suddenly seemed unable to answer the simplest question in the world. He began, then stopped. His silence said everything. Lavinia felt a strange ache in her chest. Not memory, but something like recognition. "I see," she murmured. Daniel took a slow breath. "Our marriage," he said carefully, "was arranged between our families." "That does not answer the question." "No." His honesty surprised her. "It does not." He moved a step closer but stopped as if wary of frightening her. "You were a gracious duchess," he continued quietly. "Respected, proper. You oversaw Somerville Hall with flawless dignity. But—" the word slipped out before she could stop it. Daniel's jaw tightened. "But I did not see you as I should have." Mary's fingers squeezed Lavinia's hand. "I was raised to be a duke," Daniel said. "No one ever taught me how to be a husband." The fire crackled again. Outside, the winter wind swept softly through the village trees. Lavinia studied the man standing before her. Tall, controlled, proud, and carrying a weight of regret that seemed far older than the journey that had brought him here. Finally, she asked the question that truly mattered. "If I return with you?" Daniel waited. "Will I remember who I was?" "I do not know." "And if I do not?" His voice lowered. "Then I will help you become whoever you wish to be." She felt Mary's quiet breath beside her. "But I will not force you," Daniel added gently. "You may remain here as long as you wish." That surprised her. "You would allow that?" "Yes. You are a powerful man. I was also a foolish one." Their eyes met again. For a moment, Lavinia felt the faintest stirring in the empty halls of her memory. Not a picture, not a moment, only a feeling. Loneliness. She rose slowly from the chair. "I cannot return with you yet," she said. Daniel nodded once. "I understand. I need time. You shall have it." "And if I decide never to come back?" The Duke of Somerville stood very still. Then he said quietly, "Then I shall spend the rest of my life wishing I had been a better husband." Lavinia did not know why, but her heart tightened painfully. Outside the cottage, the winter wind whispered across the quiet village, and for the first time since the accident, the Duke realized he might have already lost his wife forever. The next morning, the entire village knew a Duke had come. Millbrook was not accustomed to nobility. Fishermen, farmers, and mill workers paused their tasks as the tall, dark rider passed slowly along the narrow road. Daniel Crew did not ride like a man of rank. He rode like a man searching. Every doorway, every window, every bend in the road seemed to hold the faint hope that he might glimpse the woman he had nearly lost forever. Behind him followed Burton at a respectful distance. "Your Grace," the loyal servant said quietly as they slowed near the village inn. "You have scarcely slept." Daniel dismounted without answering. Sleep had become impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same image: a shattered carriage, a blood-stained road, and the empty space where his wife should have been. "I told her she may remain," Daniel said at last. Burton nodded. "You did the right thing, sir." Daniel gave a faint, humorless smile. "For 2 years I did very little right where my wife was concerned." The innkeeper hurried forward, bowing nervously. "Your Grace, the room has been prepared exactly as you requested." "Thank you." Daniel entered the modest village inn with the same quiet dignity he would have carried into the grandest London ballroom. Yet the simple wooden floors and low ceilings made the towering Duke seem strangely out of place. Still, he did not complain. This was the closest he had been to Lavinia in weeks, and he would not leave. Meanwhile, at Mary Kettering's cottage, Lavinia stood by the window watching the distant road. Mary noticed immediately. "You are thinking of him." Lavinia folded her arms slightly, uncertain. "I am thinking of everything." The morning light fell across the small room, illuminating the fine embroidery Lavinia had been working on. Mary had noticed it days earlier. No village girl possessed such delicate stitching. "You handled yourself bravely yesterday," Mary said gently. "I felt strangely calm. That is often how the heart protects itself." Lavinia touched the ring on her finger again. The gold band felt familiar, but the life attached to it did not. "Mary," she asked quietly, "do you believe he loves me?" Mary did not answer immediately. Instead, she stirred the kettle slowly above the fire. "I believe," she said at last, "that he fears losing you." Lavinia turned from the window. "That is not the same thing." "No." Mary met her eyes kindly. "But it is often where love begins." The thought lingered uncomfortably. Lavinia stepped outside for air. The village morning was peaceful. Children ran along the dirt road. A baker carried fresh loaves from his oven. Life here was simple, honest, very different from the life she had supposedly lived as a duchess. Yet as she walked slowly toward the market square, something strange happened. A passing couple laughed together, their hands brushing lightly as they walked. Lavinia stopped. An ache moved through her chest. Not memory, but longing, a deep, quiet loneliness she could not explain. "I feel as though I am missing something," she whispered. Across the square, 2 villagers suddenly removed their hats respectfully. Lavinia followed their gaze. At the far end of the road stood the Duke of Somerville. He had not approached. He had not called to her. He simply stood there, silent, distant, giving her the space he had promised, watching her as though every step she took mattered. Lavinia felt her breath catch slightly. The feared Duke of London society looked less like a powerful nobleman, and more like a man waiting for judgment. She did not yet know why, but something inside her whispered a troubling question. Why would a man like that wait so patiently? For a wife he had once ignored? Lavinia did not expect the Duke to approach her. Yet the following morning, as she walked along the narrow path leading toward the old mill, she heard the steady rhythm of hoofbeats behind her. She turned. Daniel Crew dismounted several yards away, careful not to startle her. "I hope I'm not intruding." His tone was polite, almost formal. "You are not," Lavinia replied. For a moment they simply stood there, the quiet river murmuring beyond the trees. Daniel held something in his hands. A small bundle wrapped in linen. "I brought these from the village market," he said. He offered the bundle without stepping closer. Lavinia opened the cloth cautiously. Inside were fresh wildflowers, simple white blossoms tied with ribbon. Not the extravagant bouquets one might expect from a duke. "These grow along the riverbank," he explained. "You once said you preferred them to roses." Lavinia looked up. "You remember such small things?" Daniel hesitated. "I remember very few things that I said to you," he admitted quietly. "But I remember what you said to me." That honesty disarmed her. She closed the cloth gently. "Thank you." They began walking slowly along the path together, though Daniel kept a respectful distance. The early spring air carried the faint scent of damp earth and water. Lavinia glanced at him. You truly intend to remain in this village? For as long as necessary. You have estates, duties, parliament. Yes. And yet you are here. Daniel looked toward the river. I spent 2 years believing my duties mattered more than anything else. His voice carried a quiet bitterness. I discovered very quickly how meaningless those duties feel when the one person meant to share your life disappears. Lavinia studied him carefully. You speak as though you regret our marriage. I regret how little I understood it. They walked in silence a few steps further. Then Lavinia spoke again. Mary told me you have already begun helping the village. Daniel shrugged faintly. The well was collapsing, the school roof leaked. That is generous. It is practical. She raised an eyebrow. How so? The people here saved your life. That answer surprised her. For the first time since meeting him, Lavinia felt something shift inside her. The Duke she had imagined, cold, proud, distant, did not match the man walking beside her. He stopped suddenly. Ahead of them, a young boy struggled to pull a heavy cart stuck in the muddy path. Without hesitation, Daniel stepped forward. Allow me. The boy stared wide-eyed as the tall nobleman lifted the cart easily free of the rut. Thank you, sir. Daniel simply nodded and returned to Lavinia. You did not need to do that, she said softly. No. But you did. He gave the faintest smile. I'm attempting to improve my habits. The words were lightly spoken, yet something sincere rested beneath them. Lavinia looked down at the flowers in her hands. You are not the man I expected. Daniel regarded her quietly. And you are not the woman I deserve. That sentence lingered between them. Lavinia felt the strange stirring in her chest again. Not memory, but curiosity. Perhaps even the faint beginning of something else. Yet before she could speak again, Daniel stepped back. I should not keep you longer. You are leaving? For today. He met her gaze steadily. I promised I would not hurry you. Lavinia watched as he mounted his horse. The Duke of Somerville gave a respectful nod before turning toward the village road. But as he rode away, Lavinia realized something that unsettled her deeply. For the first time since waking without memories, she felt disappointed to see him go. 2 days later, the first true memory returned. It came without warning. Lavinia sat by the cottage window. A length of delicate embroidery stretched across her lap. Her fingers moved easily across the silk thread, far too easily for someone who claimed not to remember learning such work. Mary had noticed it many times. You see? Mary said gently. Such skill does not appear from nowhere. Lavinia smiled faintly. I suppose I must have been taught well. But as she pushed the needle through the cloth, a sudden image struck her mind. A long corridor, high windows, marble floors echoing with footsteps. The memory vanished as quickly as it came. Lavinia gasped softly. Mary hurried to her side. What is it, my dear? I saw something, Lavinia whispered. A memory? I believe so. She pressed her fingers to her temple, trying desperately to grasp it before it slipped away. There was a house, she said slowly, a very large one. Mary nodded with quiet encouragement. That must be Somerville Hall. Yes, but it was so empty. The word lingered heavily. Empty? Mary asked carefully. Lavinia struggled to explain. I remember walking through those corridors day after day. There were servants everywhere, yet I felt... Her voice faltered. Alone. Mary did not speak. She simply rested a comforting hand over Lavinia's. The fire crackled softly behind them. I do not remember arguments, Lavinia continued quietly, nor cruelty, only silence. She looked down at the ring again. Is it possible to be lonely inside a marriage? Mary sighed gently. My dear, many women in grand houses know that feeling. Lavinia swallowed. The faint memory left a strange ache behind. Before she could say more, the cottage door opened. A young man stepped inside, brushing cold air from his coat. Ah, Mary said warmly, you have come at last. The man smiled. Good afternoon, Aunt Mary. His eyes fell immediately upon Lavinia. You must be the lady we found. Lavinia rose politely. You were the one who helped rescue me? Yes, he said with a friendly bow. I am Thomas. I was passing along the road when I saw the wrecked carriage. His voice grew more serious. It was quite a dreadful sight. Lavinia felt a sudden chill. The carriage? The coachman was killed instantly, Thomas said gently. But when I heard movement in the grass beside the road, I realized someone else had survived. You found me? Yes. He studied her with curiosity. You were unconscious, but you were holding something tightly. Lavinia frowned slightly. Holding what? Thomas reached into his coat pocket. A handkerchief. He unfolded the fine white cloth carefully. In one corner was embroidered a single elegant name.
Lavania.
Seeing it sent a strange ripple through her chest. "That is my name," she said softly. "Yes." Thomas hesitated. "And you were clutching this ring as though it were the most important thing in the world." Lavinia looked down at the gold band again. The memory of the corridor returned faintly. Long hallways, quiet footsteps, and the heavy silence of a house too large for a lonely heart. "Mary," Lavinia whispered. "Yes, my dear. If that house is truly my home—" Her voice trembled slightly. "Why do I feel afraid to return to it?" Mary did not answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the road outside the window, because at that very moment, the Duke of Somerville was already walking toward the cottage. And Lavinia had no idea that the man approaching the door carried a secret even she had never known. The knock came gently, yet the sound carried an unexpected weight. Mary rose to answer, already knowing who stood outside. When the door opened, Daniel Crew stepped into the cottage once more. He removed his gloves slowly, his eyes searching the room until they found Lavinia. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he noticed the handkerchief in her hands. "Someone has shown you that," he said quietly. Thomas stepped forward. "I found it at the accident, Your Grace." Daniel inclined his head in acknowledgement. "You did well to keep it." Lavinia watched him carefully. "Is it truly mine?" "Yes." "Then perhaps you can explain something." Daniel waited. "Why was I traveling alone?" The question hung in the room like a blade. Mary lowered her eyes. Thomas suddenly found great interest in the fire. Daniel did not look away from Lavinia. "You wished to visit your aunt. That is what you told me before." "Yes. But that is not the whole truth, is it?" Daniel's jaw tightened. Lavinia stepped closer, the quiet strength in her voice unmistakable. "When I remembered the house today and it felt empty." She touched her temple again, searching for the fragile fragments of memory. Not cruel, not violent, simply empty. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "You are correct." Mary inhaled softly. Lavinia's voice grew steadier. "I believe I left because I could no longer breathe in that silence." The Duke did not deny it. "You asked for space," he said quietly. "And you allowed it." "Yes. But you did not ask me to stay." The word struck deeper than accusation. Daniel's voice lowered. "No." The fire popped sharply in the hearth. Lavinia searched his face. "Did you want me to stay?" The Duke of Somerville, feared in London drawing rooms for his unshakable composure, looked suddenly like a man standing before judgment. "Yes," he said at last. "Then why did you not say so?" Daniel gave a bitter smile. "Because by the time I understood that question mattered, you were already gone." Silence fell. Lavinia studied him carefully. For the first time she saw not only the powerful Duke, she saw the man beneath the title, a man who had been raised for duty, not for love. "You said something when we first spoke," she said slowly, "that you had been taught how to be a duke but not a husband." "Yes." "And now?" Daniel's eyes met hers. "Now I am trying to learn." Mary looked between them with quiet hope, but Lavinia's expression remained uncertain. "I cannot promise anything," she said honestly. "I know. I still do not remember loving you. I understand. And I still feel afraid of the life waiting for me in that house." Daniel nodded slowly. "I would be afraid of it as well, if I had lived there as you did." The honesty of that answer unsettled her more than anything else. Lavinia lowered her gaze. "You speak differently now?" "Because I nearly lost the chance to speak at all." Their eyes met again, and for the first time since the accident, Lavinia felt something stir deep inside her chest. Not memory, not love, but something far more dangerous. The possibility that the man standing before her might become someone she could love. 3 days later, the village had begun to change. Not because Lavinia's memory had returned, but because the Duke of Somerville had refused to remain idle. The broken well near the market square had been repaired. A new roof now covered the tiny schoolhouse where village children gathered. Even the old mill path had been cleared and strengthened. The villagers spoke of it in astonished whispers. A duke does not usually trouble himself with such matters. Yet Daniel Crew did, and Lavinia saw every quiet change. That afternoon she walked slowly toward the inn where he had taken lodging. The winter air had softened into early spring. Children ran past her laughing. "Good afternoon, miss. Please thank the Duke for the new well." Lavinia paused, surprised. "You should thank him yourselves." "We did," one boy said proudly, "but he told us to thank you." "Me?" "Yes, miss. He said the village showed kindness to his wife." The word lingered strangely in her chest. "Wife." Lavinia continued walking until she reached the inn garden. Daniel sat alone beneath the bare branches of a large oak tree. He looked up when he heard her approach. Immediately he rose. "You should have sent word," he said. "I wish to come myself." He studied her carefully. "You look stronger." "I am." She gestured toward the chair beside him. "May I sit?" "Of course." They settled beneath the quiet tree. For a moment neither spoke. Then Lavinia asked softly, "Why are you doing all this for the village?" Daniel leaned back slightly. It seemed right. "That is not the entire reason." "No," he admitted. She waited. He gave a faint sigh. "When I thought you were dead." His voice faltered briefly. "I realized something rather unpleasant about myself." Lavinia watched him closely. "I had given you everything that society believes a duchess should want. A grand house, servants, respect." He paused. "But I had never given you myself." The wind moved gently through the branches above them. Lavinia spoke quietly. "You believed duty was enough." "Yes." "And now?" Daniel met her gaze steadily. "Now I know duty is only the skeleton of a life." "And love?" "That," he said slowly, "is the breath that keeps it alive." The honesty in his voice unsettled her. She studied him carefully. "You are very different from the man I imagined when I first heard you were my husband." Daniel smiled faintly. "I hope that is an improvement." "It may be." "Only may?" She hesitated. "I still do not know if I can trust what I feel." "That is fair." He folded his hands calmly. "I have given you very little reason to trust me." Lavinia looked down at her ring again. "My memories return in fragments," she admitted. "Small pieces." Daniel waited. "I remembered the riding grounds yesterday." His expression shifted slightly. "You loved riding." "I remembered you teaching me." The faintest warmth appeared in his eyes. "You were quite fearless." I was happy in that memory. Daniel looked away toward the river beyond the hill. "I should have made more of them." Lavinia turned back to him. "Daniel." The use of his name surprised him. "Yes?" "If I returned to Somerville Hall," he waited very still, "would I walk those corridors alone again?" The Duke of Somerville answered without hesitation, "No." "How can you be certain?" "Because I have finally understood what it means to be your husband." She searched his face. "And what does it mean?" Daniel's voice lowered. "It means standing beside you even when you do not yet remember why you once stood beside me." Lavinia's heart stirred again, slowly. "Carefully? Dangerously." "Daniel," she said quietly, I'm ready to see that house again." The carriage rolled slowly through the iron gates upon Somerville Hall. Lavinia sat beside Daniel in silence as the vast estate came into view. Tall stone towers rose against the pale afternoon sky. The grand manor stood exactly as her memory had hinted, magnificent, imposing, and once unbearably lonely. But something was different now. Servants waited along the front steps, not with rigid formality but with visible relief. The moment the carriage stopped, the doors opened. "Welcome home, Your Grace." Lavinia stepped down slowly. The gravel path beneath her shoes felt strangely familiar. She looked toward Daniel. "You truly did not force me to return." "No." "You waited." "Yes." "And you would have continued waiting?" Daniel met her gaze calmly. "For as long as necessary." The honesty in that answer warmed something deep within her chest. They entered the hall together. The same long corridor appeared before her. Marble floors, high windows, a silence that once felt unbearable. But today, it felt different, not empty, expectant. Daniel watched her carefully. "If anything here troubles you, we can leave." Lavinia shook her head. "No." She walked slowly down the corridor. Each step stirred faint echoes of memory. A door opened. A sitting room she had once arranged herself. A portrait she remembered commissioning. Fragments. Pieces of a life slowly returning. She turned back toward him. "I remember more now." Daniel's breath stilled. "Do you remember us?" "Some things." Her voice softened. "I remember how quiet this house was." Daniel nodded. "I remember walking these corridors alone." "I know. And I remember one day." She stepped closer. "You took me riding." Daniel's expression shifted. "Yes." "You looked almost happy." A faint smile touched his lips. "I was." "So was I." The memory settled gently between them. Lavinia studied the man standing before her. Not the distant duke she had once married, but the man who had waited in a small village inn rather than command her return. "Daniel." "Yes?" "I do not remember falling in love with you the first time." His voice remained steady. "I expected as much." But I believe something even more remarkable has happened. He frowned slightly. And what is that? She reached for his hand. Her fingers closed gently around his. I believe I am beginning to fall in love with you now. Daniel Crewe, Duke of Somerville, who had faced parliament debates, political rivals, and society scandals without hesitation, looked momentarily speechless. Lavinia, you once said no one taught you how to be a husband. Yes, she smiled softly. Then we shall learn together. The great hall seemed warmer suddenly, not grander, not louder, simply alive. Daniel lifted her hand carefully to his lips. I promise you this, he said quietly. You will never walk these corridors alone again. Lavinia looked around the house that had once felt like a prison. Now it felt like something else entirely. Not merely a duchess's residence, but a place where two imperfect people had been given a second chance. And this time, they intended to live it together,